The cool evening air caressed my skin as I sat in the backyard contemplating. The soothing sound of the hot tub's bubbling water provided a tranquil backdrop to the unusual quiet of the house. Usually, the space would be vibrant with activity, especially during Lisa, my stepmother's renowned social gatherings. The cool evening air caressed my skin as I sat in the backyard, lost in thought. The gentle bubbling of the hot tub nearby provided a soothing backdrop to the unusual quiet of the house. Normally, the place would be buzzing with activity, especially when Lisa, my stepmother, threw one of her famous parties. But tonight it was just me, savoring a glass of wine I'd discreetly taken from the fridge. I'm Jake, by the way, 22, fresh out of college, and living at home while I figure out my next move. It's not ideal, but it has its perks, like quiet evenings like this one, or so I thought. The sound of the sliding door opening broke through my reverie. I turned to see Lisa and a couple of her friends step out, drinks in hand. They were clearly in high spirits. "Jake, what are you doing out here all alone?" Lisa called out, her voice carrying a hint of playfulness that I had grown accustomed to over the years. I turned to see Lisa and two of her friends. They were all smiling and holding drinks, clearly in high spirits. It didn't take long for them to spot me. "Jake, what are you doing out here all alone?" Lisa called out, her voice carrying a hint of playfulness that I had grown accustomed to over the years. I shrugged, not really sure how to respond. I hadn't expected company, especially not hers, as they drew closer. I noticed they were all wearing bikinis under their robes. It was clear they had plans for the hot tub. One of Lisa's friends, I think her name was Megan, smiled at me and said, "You should join us." I found myself unable to formulate a response. The women were dressed in bikinis under their robes, and it was clear that they had plans for the hot tub. One of Lisa's friends, I think her name was Megan, smiled at me and teased, "You should join us." Lisa was beside me, taking my wine glass. Her eyes sparkled with mischief as she said, "Come on, don't be shy. It'll be fun. The water's perfect tonight." I hesitated, feeling a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. There was something about the situation that felt. Lisa's tone was light and teasing, and she invited me to join her in the hot tub. I hesitated, but she encouraged me, saying that the water was perfect for my comfort. I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension, and I found myself nodding in agreement. After a moment, I stood up and joined them. I remembered that Megan and Lisa's other friend, Sarah, had also joined them. I could hear their laughter as they climbed into the warm water. Their laughter filled the night air, and I found myself drawn to it. I stood by, waiting for the right moment to join them. I remained at the edge, momentarily disoriented, as Lisa gave me a knowing look and invited me to join her. I accepted, stepping into the hot tub. The warm water enveloped me instantly, soothing away my attention, which I had not realized I was carrying. I settled into my designated spot, keenly aware of Lisa's presence nearby. "Relax, Sarah," she said, her voice gentle and reassuring. "We're all here to enjoy ourselves." Lisa handed me another glass of wine, her fingers briefly touching mine for a moment longer than necessary. I wasn't sure if it was the warmth of the water, or I took my seat and began to feel more at ease. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and playful splashing. However, beneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of tension that I couldn't quite ignore. Every now and then, I caught one of them looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite place. I felt uneasy, and the minutes passed slowly. Lisa moved closer to me, her shoulder now gently pressing against mine as she spoke, and her hand occasionally resting on my arm, lingering there. I attempted to maintain composure, but I could feel my heart racing. Megan and Sarah were watching us, their smiles seeming to dare. As time passed, I became aware of Lisa's increased proximity to me. Her shoulder was now gently pressing against mine, and her hand would occasionally rest on my arm, lingering there. I attempted to maintain composure, but I could feel my heart racing. Megan and Sarah were observing us, their smiles suggesting a challenge to act. However, I remained still, uncertain of the direction the situation would take. The atmosphere had shifted, becoming charged with an energy I couldn't fully identify. Lisa leaned in close, her breath warm against my ear, and whispered, "You seem tense, Jake. Why don't you let us help you relax?" Her words sent a shiver down my spine. I glanced at Megan and Sarah, who had now moved closer, their eyes locking on me. Megan smiled, her lips curving in a way that made my stomach flutter. The combination of the warm water, the wine, and their proximity was making everything feel hazy. Lisa's lips brushed against my cheek, teasing and playful. Megan and Sarah giggled softly, and I could feel the tension escalating with every passing second. It was as if the world outside had ceased to exist. All that mattered was this moment, the heat, the closeness, and the unspoken promises hanging in the air between us. Lisa's hand slid down my arm, her touch more deliberate now. Sarah's soft giggle indicated a shift in the dynamics of the situation. As the group transitioned from casual conversation to a more intimate engagement, the warmth and proximity of the moment, coupled with the unspoken promises that lingered in the air, created an atmosphere of heightened tension. Lisa's hand moved in a deliberate manner as she continued to explore my arm, her touch conveying a clear shift in the nature of the activity. Megan and Sarah appeared to be engaged as well, their gazes and soft laughter contributing to the atmosphere. My ability to concentrate was significantly diminished. Lisa's next whisper, "We've been waiting for this, you know," left me breathless as she articulated her words. The water swirled, creating a sensory experience that added to the overall intensity of the moment. It was evident that the situation had transitioned from innocent merriment to something more profound. Megan and Sarah's gazes and laughter suggested their involvement. I found myself struggling to maintain focus. As Lisa's whispering words hung in the air, she murmured, "We've been waiting for this, you know." Her words left me breathless. The water swirled around us, warm and inviting, yet it paled in comparison to the mounting heat between us. Lisa's lips found my neck, soft and teasing, as her fingers traced lazy patterns across my chest. Megan and Sarah were close now, their hands exploring their lips, occasionally brushing my skin. I felt completely surrounded. In every direction I sensed a soft touch and a warm body pressing closer. The experience was almost overwhelming, yet in a positive sense. Megan leaned in, her hands gradually moving up my chest as she kissed me. Her lips were gentle yet firm, and I responded with a kiss. My hands found their way to her waist. In every direction I looked, I encountered a soft touch and a warm body pressing closer. The experience was nearly overwhelming, yet in the best possible way. Megan leaned in, her hands sliding up my chest as she kissed me. Her lips were gentle yet firm, and I responded by kissing her back. My hands found their way to her waist. Sarah was also present, her fingers tracing down my arm, her lips brushing against my jaw. "You deserve this," she said softly. Her eyes met mine, conveying a look that was both playful and intense. Lisa pulled back just enough to look at me. Her eyes were dark and full of desire. She smiled a slow, teasing smile that Sarah's presence was notable, her fingers tracing down my arm and her lips brushing against my jaw. "You deserve this," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine with a look that was both playful and intense. Lisa pulled back just enough to look at me, her eyes dark and full of desire. She smiled a slow, teasing smile that made my stomach flop. "Are you enjoying this?" she asked, her voice low and sultry. I was unable to speak, unable to find the words to answer her. All I could do was nod. My heart was racing as her lips met mine in a slow, lingering kiss. As the kiss deepened, I felt Lisa's hand on my thigh, moving with purpose and understanding her intent. I shifted to assist her, and soon I found myself unclothed. The sensation of the warm water against my unprotected skin was exhilarating. Taking a deep breath, I decided to proceed. My hands found Lisa's body, and with gentle movements, I assisted her out of her swimsuit. Megan and Sarah quickly followed suit. We were soon all in the bubbling water, and I found myself admiring the unique beauty of each body. Lisa's curves, Megan's toned physique, Sarah's graceful form. It was all too much to take in. What followed was a blur of sensations. Soft skin, warm water, gentle touches that grew bolder. Each passing moment brought new sensations, from the softness of our skin to the warmth of the water, and the gentle touches we shared. I found myself tasting, touching, and exploring first Lisa, then Megan, and finally Sarah. Each experience was unique, and each moment left a lasting impression. T one point. I stood up, and the cool night air created a stark contrast to the warm water. Lisa and Megan moved closer, their attention focused on me in a way that, as time passed, I found myself tasting, touching, and exploring each other. Lisa, Megan, and Sarah each had unique experiences, and each moment was memorable. At one point I stood up, and the cool night air was a stark contrast to the warm water. Lisa and Megan moved closer. Their attention focused on me in a way that made me feel dizzy. The dual sensation of their mouths was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. The intensity built until I couldn't hold back any longer. With a groan, I let go, and I felt a wave of release wash over me as the moment passed. I sank back into the water, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated as the night went on. The experience was quite overwhelming. The combination of their mouths and the hot tub created a unique sensation that I had never felt before. It built up to a point where I couldn't hold back, and I let go, feeling the release wash over me. As the moment passed, I sank back into the water, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. As the night went on, everything started to calm down. The hot tub continued to bubble, but the frantic energy from earlier had faded. Lisa moved back a little, her hand still gently touching me, but now there was a different look in her eyes. Softer, more relaxed. Megan and Sarah were quiet, just smiling as they sat there enjoying the moment. The hot tub's bubbles subsided, and the atmosphere became more tranquil. Lisa moved slightly, her hand still gently touching me, but her eyes now held a different expression. Softer, more relaxed. Megan and Sarah were silent, simply smiling as they sat and relished the warm water. The surge of excitement had passed, and we were all savoring the afterglow of the moment. After a while, Lisa sighed and smiled gently at me. "Quiet, Kael," she said. Her voice was warm but calm. "We should do this again sometime." Megan and Sarah nodded in agreement. The warm water had receded, and the group was now in a state of repose. Lisa emitted a sigh, bestowing upon me a gentle smile that was a source of amusement. "Quiet, quiet," she said. "We'll have to do this again sometime." Megan and Sarah nodded in agreement, their playful smiles still present, yet the atmosphere was now more tranquil. They gradually exited the hot tub, wrapped themselves in towels, and quietly giggled as they returned indoors. Lisa was the final to depart, offering one final glance over her shoulder. Her eyes glimmered and she said, "Good night, Jake." Her smile remained, but there was a new calmness to her expression. They exited the hot tub, wrapping themselves in towels and laughing quietly as they returned indoors. Lisa was the last to leave, giving me one final glance over her shoulder. Her eyes twinkled as she said, "Good night, Jake." Before disappearing inside with her friends, I remained in the hot tub for a few more minutes, letting the warm water soothe me. My heart was still racing, but I knew the night had come to a close. The events of the evening had been unexpected, intense, and unforgettable. As I leaned back and closed my eyes, I couldn't help but smile to myself. After bidding farewell to the company of my acquaintances, I retired to the hot tub for a few moments more. The events of the evening had been unanticipated, invigorating, and unforgettable. As I reclined and closed my eyes, I couldn't help but smile. I recognized that the situation would never be quite the same again, and I found myself feeling simultaneously apprehensive and optimistic about the future. I was unaware that this was merely the start of a summer that would bring about significant changes. The following morning, I awoke with a slight headache and a surge of memories from the previous night. I was slightly under the weather the next morning, with a bit of a headache and memories of the night before playing on my mind. I pondered whether it had all been a dream. The hot tub, Lisa, Megan, and Sarah. It felt surreal, but as I became more alert, I recognized that it had indeed been real. The house was quiet as I made my way downstairs. I half expected to find Lisa in the kitchen, but it was empty. A note on the counter caught my eye. I considered the possibility that the events of the day had been a dream. The hot tub, Lisa, Megan, and Sarah. It all seemed too unreal to have actually happened. However, as I became more alert, I knew it had been real, very real. As I made my way downstairs, I half expected to find Lisa in the kitchen, but it was empty. A note on the counter caught my eye. It read, "Out for brunch with the girls. Be back later." I breathed a sigh of relief. I wasn't quite ready to face Lisa yet. I needed time to process everything that had happened. As I sipped my coffee, my mind wandered back to the events of last night. I reflected on the way Lisa had looked at me and the feeling of counter caught my eye as I was preparing to go out for brunch with the girls. I breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that I wasn't quite ready to face Lisa yet. I needed time to process everything that had happened. As I sipped my coffee, my mind wandered back to the events of last night. The way Lisa had looked at me, the feeling of Megan's lips on mine, Sarah's soft touch. It was all so vivid. But now, in the harsh light of day, I felt a twinge of guilt. Lisa was my stepmom after all, and Megan and Sarah were her friends. What had I gotten myself into? The sound of the front door opening snapped me out of my thoughts. Lisa walked in looking fresh, and I was reminded of the night Megan and Sarah kissed me, and of Lisa's reassuring smile. I felt a twinge of guilt. Lisa was my stepmother, and Megan and Sarah were her friends. I thought to myself, what had I gotten myself into? Lisa walked in looking fresh and relaxed. She smiled when she saw me, but there was a hint of something else in her eyes. I thought she looked nervous or excited. "Morning, Jake," she said. Her voice was casual. "Sleep well." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Lisa busied herself making a cup of tea. The silence between us grew heavier by the second. Finally, she turned to face me. She inquired about last night's events, and I felt my heart rate increase. "I hope you don't feel uncomfortable," I said, shaking my head. "Not uncomfortable, just surprised." Lisa's smile softened. "It wasn't planned. If that's what you're thinking, it just happened." We conversed for a while, clearing the air. Lisa assured me that she was not trying to cause any discomfort. I was taken aback by Lisa's touch, the sound she made, and the taste of Sarah's lips. A week later, I was in the midst of my usual routine with Lisa, and I felt my heart rate increase. I shook my head, not to indicate discomfort but to show surprise. Lisa's smile eased the situation. "It wasn't planned. If you're wondering if it was intentional, it wasn't. Just happened." We conversed for a while, clearing the air. Lisa assured me that Megan and Sarah were discreet, and that what happened in the hot tub would remain between us. She also made it clear that while she didn't regret what happened, she understood if I wanted to pretend it never occurred. As time passed, I found myself wondering. I found myself reflecting on that night increasingly, including the manner in which Lisa had touched me, the sounds Megan had made, and the taste of Sarah's lips. It was all etched into my memory. A week passed, and it appeared as though things had returned to normal. Lisa and I resumed our usual routine with no mention of that night, but I found myself reflecting on that night, specifically the way Lisa had touched me, the sounds Megan had made, and the taste of Sarah's lips. These memories were etched into my mind. Over the course of a week, we reverted to our usual routine, with Lisa and I maintaining a professional distance, though there was an undercurrent of tension and a new charged energy. However, one evening the situation changed again. I was in my room working on my laptop when I heard a soft knock at the door. Lisa poked her head in, looking a bit nervous. "Jake, can we talk?" I nodded, closing my laptop as she came in. A subtle shift in the atmosphere was evident, as a newfound tension and energy began to take shape. One evening, the situation underwent a significant change. I was in my room working on my laptop when a soft knock sounded at the door. Lisa entered, her demeanor slightly nervous. "Jake, I'd like to talk," she said, her voice a soft tone. She sat on the edge of my bed, wearing a silky robe. I couldn't help but recall her appearance in the hot tub that same night. She said her voice was low as she mentioned that night, and I speculated about the possibility of exploring things further. My heart began to race, and I wondered what might happen. I inquired. "Do you mean?" I asked. Lisa moved closer, her hand resting on my knee. "If you're comfortable with it, we could see where this goes, just the two of us this time." I knew I should say no. This was my stepmom after all, but the memory of her touch and the look in her eyes. I inquired. "Have I asked you something?" Lisa moved closer, her hand resting on my knee. "If you're comfortable with it, we could see where this goes, just the two of us this time." I knew I should say no. This was my stepmom after all. But the memory of her touch, the look in her eyes, it was too much to resist. "Okay," I heard myself say. "Let's see where this goes." What followed was a night of exploration and discovery. Lisa and I took our time, learning each other's bodies, finding out what made the other gasp and moan. It was different from the frenzied energy of the hot tub night. It was slower. After a period of adjustment, the relationship between Lisa and I evolved. We began exploring a new aspect of our connection, characterized by a deeper level of intimacy and a more relaxed pace. Lisa's patterns on my chest indicated a shift in our dynamic, and I recognized the need to adapt. Over the following weeks, we established a new routine during the day, maintaining our usual activities. Lisa and I established a new routine, incorporating more physical intimacy while maintaining our usual routine during the day. At night, we explored a deeper level of connection, involving conversation, emotional sharing, and the exchange of personal information. I learned about her past, her aspirations, and her concerns. She listened as I discussed my uncertainties about the future, my goals, and my insecurities. One night, as we lay tangled together, Lisa propped herself up on an elbow and looked at me seriously. "Jake, I need to ask you something," she said, her voice hesitant. "Anything," I replied, curious about her sudden seriousness. "How would you feel about including others?" I blinked, surprised. "You mean like Megan and Sarah?" Lisa nodded in affirmation. "They've been asking about you, and I believe they're interested in repeating that night in the hot tub." I took a moment to consider the idea. It was certainly exciting, but I also felt a twinge of jealousy at the thought of sharing Lisa. "We don't have to," Lisa said. Megan and Sarah nodded in affirmation. "They had been asking about you. I believe they are interested in repeating that night in the hot tub." I took a moment to consider the idea. It was certainly exciting, but I also felt a twinge of jealousy at the thought of sharing Lisa. "We don't have to," Lisa said, noticing my hesitation. "I'm happy with just us. I just thought, well, variety can be fun sometimes." I pulled her close, kissing her deeply. "Let's try it," I said when we finally broke apart. "But you're always my number one." Lisa's smile was radiant in your eyes. She whispered. The next weekend, Megan and Sarah came. I was pleased to find that Lisa was not only comfortable with the arrangement, but also enthusiastic about the prospect of a more intimate gathering. The initial hesitation had dissipated, and we were eager to proceed with the event. The following weekend, we hosted a private party for Lisa, Megan, and Sarah. The atmosphere was relaxed and anticipatory, a stark contrast to the previous night's more intense encounter. We began in the living room, accompanied by soft music, sipping wine and engaging in flirtatious behavior. It wasn't long before the women began to remove their clothing and engage in physical contact. This time I felt more confident and in control of the situation. I took the initiative, leading the women to the bedroom, where we engaged in extended periods of exploration and pleasure, experimenting with various combinations. As the night progressed, I was impressed by the distinct characteristics of each woman. Lisa exhibited a passionate and intense demeanor, while Megan displayed a playful and light-hearted spirit. Sarah and Lisa were both adventurous and gentle, and together they created an experience that was beyond anything I could have imagined. In the quiet aftermath, as we all lay catching our breath, I realized that my life had taken a turn I never could have predicted. As I looked at Lisa, her eyes met mine, and Sarah and I were compatible, and our relationship was characterized by a blend of love and desire. I felt that I would not change a thing. Over time, our unconventional arrangement persisted. Lisa and I remained the core, and our connection strengthened with each passing day. Megan and Sarah joined us on occasion, always bringing a spark of excitement and novelty. The relationship was marked by a blend of love, desire, and uncertainty. There were moments of jealousy, doubt, and fear, such as the concern that someone might discover the arrangement or that one of us might develop stronger feelings for someone else. To navigate these challenges, open and honest communication was essential. One particularly memorable night after Megan and Sarah, the relationship was marked by moments of jealousy, doubt, and fear, as well as considerations of what might happen if the relationship were to become public or if one of the partners were to develop stronger feelings for someone else. In such situations, it was essential to maintain open and honest communication. One particularly memorable night, after Megan and Sarah had left, Lisa and I were cuddling on the couch. She turned to me, her expression serious. "Jake, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice trembling slightly. My heart skipped a beat. Was this it? Was she going to end the relationship? I think I'm falling in love with you," she whispered. Relief flooded through me. Lisa and I were cuddling on the couch when she turned to me and said, "Jake, I need to tell you something." Her voice was slightly tremulous, and my heart skipped a beat. Was this it? Was she going to end things? I think I'm falling in love with you, she whispered, and I felt a surge of relief, followed quickly by a surge of emotion. Lisa continued. Jake, I think I've been in love with you for a while now. We made love that night with a new intensity, our emotions running high afterward. As we lay in each other's arms, we talked about the future. We knew our relationship was, while we recognized that our relationship might not be understood by everyone, we were committed to making it work. As summer transitioned into fall, we established a new normal for ourselves, although to the outside world we remained just stepmother and stepson. Privately, we were partners, lovers, and confidants. Megan and Sarah remained part of our lives, but more as, many people may not understand, but we were committed to making it work. As summer turned to fall, we settled into a new normal. In private, we were partners, lovers, and confidants. Megan and Sarah remained part of our lives, but more as occasional spice than a regular feature. One crisp autumn evening, as Lisa and I sat on the back porch watching the sunset, she turned to me with a smile. You know, she said, her eyes twinkling, I never thought that night in the hot tub would lead to all this. I laughed, pulling her close to me. Neither of us, but I'm glad. On a cool autumn evening, Lisa and I were on the back porch, enjoying the sunset. She smiled at me, her eyes sparkling. I didn't expect that night in the hot tub to lead to this. I laughed, pulling her close. I'm happy about it. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in orange and pink, I reflected on the past few months. From that unexpected night in the hot tub to this moment, it had been a whirlwind of discovery, pleasure, and love. I didn't know what the future held for us, but I was excited. As the sun set, casting a pink and orange glow over the sky, I reflected on the past few months, from that unexpected evening in the hot tub to the present moment. It had been a period of significant growth and discovery, filled with moments of pleasure and love. I recognized that future challenges awaited us, but as I held Lisa in my arms, feeling the warmth of her body against mine, I knew that whatever lay ahead, we would face it together. Despite the cool night air, neither of us moved to go inside. We were content to sit there, wrapped in each other's embrace, savoring the moment. We were aware of the challenges ahead, but we were also confident in our ability to overcome them. As the night air grew cooler, we remained in our seats, content to enjoy each other's company. We made a silent wish for continuity, not for any changes, but to maintain the status quo. My journey had led me to unexpected discoveries, and this evening in the hot tub was just the beginning.